Right, my dear children? Now, in the earlier chapters, we discussed two different systems. First system is about the excretory products and the urinary system. Okay, and then we discussed about the nervous system of the body. Now, in this part, we are going to discuss about the largest organ contained within the body of a human being. So, the largest organ contained within the body of a human being is the skin. So, my dear children, within this session, within this chapter, we'll be discussing about the things contained in the human skin and the main parts that we can identify in the skin and their functions with their special properties. Right then, so let's see what are the things contained under the human skin. So as I told, skin is the largest organ in our body, right? It is the largest organ contained in our body. It weighs about 4.5 kilograms and thickness is about 1 to 2 millimeters in an adult. So in an adult, right, if you take an adult person, the thickness of the skin is about 1 to 2 millimeters and the mass of the skin is about 4.5 kilograms, right? It's about 4.5 kilogram in a well-grown adult. Skin mainly consists with two layers. Now, in our skin, there are two main layers. Okay, in the skin, there are two main layers. So, you are given with the first one. The first and foremost layer that we can identify in the skin is that the dermis, right? Epidermis. First and foremost layer is the epidermis, right? The topmost layer, epidermis. Then you can observe the dermis. The second most layer, the interior layer is the dermis. So epidermis is the topmost layer and the dermis is the interior layer. So these are the two layers that we can observe within the human skin, right? Okay, so let's move on with the other contents. So here, now we are going to study about the structure of the human skin. Okay, and we are going to identify several components contained within the human skin. So like in the previous systems, here also you will be needing a diagram plus a 3D simulation. I'm going to use a 3D simulation in order to show the structure. But for you guys, you can find out a plastic structure or a different one in order to identify the components contained within the skin. So my dear children, what do you need here to identify the structure and the functions of the parts contained in the skin, right? Is a prototype of a skin made up with plastic or any other material, or else you can find out a software and you can install into your computer. Then by that way you can find out the human skin anatomy. So we'll be needing that one plus a figure as well to identify the components. So we need a figure or else a simulation. A figure or else a simulation, or else, right? Or else you'll be needing a structure. Structure of human skin. Right? a figure or else a simulation, right, or else a structure of human skin. You'll be needing, definitely you will be needing a figure to identify the components, right? You'll be needing a figure. This is really important. After that, find out at least one of these two. So now I'm going to use the simulation and I'm going to show you how or what are the parts contained in the human skin. Right. Before that, I'm going to show you the method of doing this activity, right? So let's see what is the method in conducting the activity. So method is really simple, my dear children. What you have to do, you are given with a figure also. What you have to do, it's really simple. Observe the figure very well and find out the components and the things contained within the skin. So we can write it like this. Observe the structure comma figure and identify the components in the skin. Identify the components in the skin. Right. So first of all, you have to observe the structure or the figure and identify the components in the skin. Right, my dear children. Now you are given with the figure. So by looking at this figure, you can identify the main components or the main parts contained in the human skin. So my dear children, first of all, you can observe the epidermis. This is the topmost layer. Once I told you in the earlier, epidermis is the topmost layer of the human skin. So this is the epidermis of the human skin, the topmost layer. Then after that, you can observe the dermis. This whole area is the dermis, right? This whole area is the dermis. So within the dermis, you can observe the nerve ends. So these nerve ends are getting connected with the skin. So these nerve ends helps to detect the sensors, especially touchers, temperature and pressures. Okay. Then after that, you can observe the hair stem in here, and these are called as the hair follicles, right? Hair follicle. From the hair follicle, hair is getting erected like in the figure. See here, this is the hair follicle. Then after that, you can observe the sebaceous glands, right? Sebaceous glands. The sebaceous gland means in our skin, right, there is a protective moisturizing layer. Okay, there is a protective moisturizing layer which is called as sebum. Sebum. So sebum is a special moisturizing layer, right? It's a moisturizing layer which is getting emitted from our skin. It helps to keep the moisture in our skin. Okay. Now, after doing some certain works, when you go home and when you touch your skin like this, you touch your skin like this, okay, and feel, and if you keep it like this, right, what can you feel in your fingertips? Definitely you can see, you can feel an oily nature in your fingers. So mainly that is due to sebum which is getting secreted by the sebaceous glands. So that oily nature helps to keep the moisture within our skin. So why does the moisture is getting help? So what is the purpose of providing a good moisture to our skin? It's because that, my dear children, if you take our skin, it's very sensitive. If there is no optimum moisture level in the skin, our skin will get cracked, right? So thereby your skin will get hurt. So to avoid those kinds of conditions, there is a protective measure being provided by the skin in order to provide us an optimum moisture level. So to provide that optimum moisture level, there is a gland called the sebaceous gland. Sebaceous gland is going to help to provide the necessary amount of moisture. So it's going to help by secreting sebum onto the skin. So this is how the moisturizing level of the skin is getting protected, right? So this sebaceous gland, right? Sebaceous gland is going to help to secrete sebum and to keep our moisture level in the skin. Then here you can observe the hair reactor muscle. So hair reactor muscle is connected with the hair follicle, right? So here hair reactor muscles can be observed, right? So within the hair reactor muscle, you can observe that sebaceous gland in here. So this is the sebaceous gland, right? Then after that, my dear children, you can observe the capillaries that runs through the dermis like this. Okay, capillaries. So capillaries helps to provide the blood supply necessary for the skin. It helps to provide the blood supply necessary for the skin, blood capillaries, right? So these are the main parts that we can identify within the skin. And one thing in here also, you can observe sweat glands. You know the purpose of sweat glands, right? It's going to emit sweat, right, which carries excretory substances. So these are the main parts that we can identify within the skin. Okay, my dear children, now let's go and let's study about that 3D structure. Now here I have named, or here actually a figure that has the parts. It's been already given. Okay, so now let's head on to identify the 3D structure and to identify their parts, right? So this is the figure analyzation. So we'll head on to see the 3D analyzation, 3D simulation, and let's observe the parts. Right, my dear children, now this is the structure that we can observe in this 3D simulation of the skin. Now if you check this thing very clearly, here you can observe in this area, right, the epidermis. See, this is the epidermis of the skin, epidermis, right? So here you can observe the epidermis, and there are different cell layers within the epidermis, my dear children. See, epidermis, the topmost layer of the skin. Then after that you can observe the dermis. So this structure, this part is considered as the dermis, right? This is the dermis. So within the dermis you can observe the blood capillaries, which is running here. See, blood capillaries. Then after that you can observe the sebaceous glands. So I'm going to turn this one here so that you can observe that hair follicles and sweat glands and the sebaceous glands. So here, see, you can observe hair follicles, then sweat glands plus the sebaceous glands here and there, right? So if you check the skin, it's like this, right? So the dermis, epidermis area, and this is the outer appearance of the skin, and different hairs. You can observe different hairs, and here see the hair follicle, right, and the blood capillaries, sweat glands, right, sweat glands, and sebaceous glands, right. So these are the main parts contained in our skin, right. So by looking at the diagram, you can see it very clearly, right. Okay, so my dear children, I hope that you got a understanding about the structure of the human skin. Right then, so we identified the main parts contained in the skin and we labeled out a diagram. So let's head on to the classroom once again, my dear children, to discuss what are the other things contained in the lesson. Okay, my dear children, so once again I came back to the classroom. So here you can observe the figure which I used to identify the components contained in the skin, right. So in the earlier case, we studied about the human skin by using the 3D anatomy or the 3D structure, and here by using the figure, right. Now let's go ahead and let's discuss what are the other things contained within the lesson. Okay then. So first of all, we are going to study about the two layers contained in the human skin. Okay, you know that the first layer contained in the human skin is the epidermis. Okay, so epidermis is the outermost layer of the skin. Okay, epidermis is the outermost layer. The epidermis is made up of several layers of cells. So I showed you that it's made up with several cell layers. When we are studying about when we are studying the structure of the human skin by using the 3D figure, 3D simulation, I showed you that human epidermis consisting several cell layers, right? So here, my dear children, there is a problem in your textbook. In here, the epidermis is heeding. Actually, heeding means listening to something, right? And paying attention to something. That's what do you mean by heeding. So instead of heeding, it should be healing, right? So we'll write it as healing. So the epidermis is healing thousands of dead cells and replenishing daily. So actually, if you take our epidermis, thousands of cells are going to die within a day, and these things are once again, now that area is once again getting healed by the replenishing of new cells. Means that thousands of cells are going to die within a day, then after that thousands of cells are going to regenerate, replenish from that place. So if you take the epidermis, from time to time it's getting renewed, right? Dead cells are getting removed and that area is getting healed by using the new cells. Okay then. Skin color is due to melanin, a pigment produced in the epidermis to protect us from the sun's ultraviolet rays. So in our epidermis, my dear children, right, skin color is due to epidermis, right, pigment called melanin, which is contained in the epidermis, right. So melanin is a special pigment produced in the epidermis. It is produced in the epidermis, right. Specialty in melanin is that it can absorb and protect our skin from ultraviolet rays which is received from the sun. If you take the melanin pigment, our skin complexion is coming because of the melanin pigments. Now if you take tropical countries, people in tropical countries, they have a dark color skin. Because most of the time in tropical countries, the sunlight that we receive, now Sri Lanka is a good tropical country, we receive plenty of sunlight throughout the year. So in order to face that amount of sunlight, okay, in order to protect from that amount of sunlight, if sunlight is coming or if sunlight is going to fall in a huge, like in a large time period, there is a probability of getting more ultraviolet rays. So to protect our skin from those ultraviolet rays, my dear children, there is a pigment called melanin. That's why our skin is somewhat darker rather than the people who are living in colder areas. Okay. So when there is plenty of sunlight, when you are being subjected or when you are getting subjected to high amount of sunlight, my dear children, your skin color is getting converted to dark color. It's because when you are in more and when you are going to behave, or when you are going to when you are going in more and more sunlight, or when you are in more and more sunlight, right, the melanin pigments which is getting produced in your skin will also increase. It's because melanin can absorb the ultraviolet rays contained in the sun. So when you are going in outside, when you are facing sunlight more and more amount of melanin pigments are getting produced. Okay, large amount of melanin pigments are going to be produced. Melanin is dark in color, so thereby your skin color is also getting into dark color. So melanin is a good component contained within the epidermis of the cell, right? Epidermis of the skin. So it's important to keep these melanin layers within our body because it is a protective measure. Okay, it is a protective measure. So it's not wise to apply different chemical substances in order to get fair. Okay, it's because that, my dear children, those chemical substances may have some chemical substances that can control the skin melanin level. So if you go to outside by applying those chemicals, there is a possibility, right? There is a possibility that the melanin level would drop down and your skin may get burned because of the ultraviolet rays. So melanin is a good pigment. It helps to protect us from the ultraviolet rays coming from the sun. So skin complexion, if you're dark, if you have a dark skin, then it is good because your skin is providing a wonderful defense mechanism against the solar power or against the UV rays coming from the solar energy. Okay, then we are going to discuss about the dermis. So dermis, the dermis beneath the epidermis contains hair and sweat glands. So hair and sweat glands and sebaceous glands, right? These glands can be observed within the dermis, and plus these things like muscles, nerve endings and blood capillaries or blood vessels, all of these things can be observed beneath the epidermis of the skin, right? Then after that, the dermis is thicker than the epidermis. Now if you take the dermis is much thicker than the epidermis. Beneath the epidermis lies the hypodermis, right? So after the dermis, you can observe the hypodermis. So these are the components contained in the dermis area. You can observe most of the components are observed in the dermis area, like the hair follicles, sweat glands and sebaceous glands, then that muscles which connects the hairs with the skin, right? Then after that, nerve endings and blood capillaries or blood vessels. All of these things can be observed. Then after that, the dermis is thicker than the epidermis. Normally, I showed you that when you are discussing about the structure by using that 3D anatomy, we observed that the dermis is somewhat thicker than the epidermis. So, beneath the dermis, you can observe the hypodermis, right? There is a structure, another structure called the hypodermis. We can observe after the dermis part. Right then. So, now we discussed the two main parts contained within the human skin. And now, my dear children, we are going to discuss the functions carried out by human skin. So, first of all, you are given as a protective, right, as a protective layer of the body. So, skin is the outermost layer in our body. So, it acts as a protective layer. How come? Because each and every microorganism, each and every pathogenic organism should pass through the epidermis, should pass through the skin and should enter to our body. So, thereby skin is acting as a protective layer. So, here it is given that the layers of the epidermis minimize water loss from the body and prevent from dehydration. Rather than those things, okay, rather than that protective layer, see, special point is given here. The layers of the epidermis minimize water loss from the body and prevent from dehydration. Now you know that if you take our body, right, when we are going to expose into sunlight, right, large amount of water vapor is going to evaporate from our body. But however, if you take the epidermis, right, if you take the epidermis, you know that epidermis contains several tissue layers, cell layers. So, upon having different types of tissue layers, cell layers, the loss of water is very less. Therefore, right, it helps to prevent from dehydration, right. Then, melanin pigments in the cells of the skin protects the body from ultraviolet rays. So, earlier also I discussed and explained this thing when I was discussing about the melanin, right. So, melanin is a special kind of a pigment contained in the skin. It helps to absorb ultraviolet rays, solar rays, and it helps to avoid complications that occur due to ultraviolet rays, right. The secretion of sebaceous gland acts as a barrier against the microorganism infections. This is a natural defense mechanism. Now, sebaceous glands are going to provide the moisturizing nature, plus it's acting as a protective layer to the human skin, right. This sebum which is getting secreted by the sebaceous glands, right, it's going to provide a mechanism against the microbial activities. Now, if there is an oil layer, a moisturizing layer, that layer would help to protect our skin, protect our interior body organs, right, from those pathogenic microorganisms, my dear children. So, in here, specialty is that if you take sebum, right, sebum is going to provide a protective layer and it is going to help. It is going to help to prevent infections created by microorganisms. So, these are the functions under the protective layer, right. We will see what are the other functions. Second function is given regulation of the body temperature. Regulation of the body temperature. When the temperature increases in the environment than the body temperature, the sweat glands secrete sweat to release heat. Now, my dear children, if the environment temperature is going to rise up, we feel warmth or we feel some amount of a heat, So in that case, you know that our skin is going to produce sweat. When sweat is evaporating, heat energy is getting absorbed from the body and it is getting evaporated, right? In order to evaporate sweat, we have to provide energy. So heat energy is absorbed by the skin, right? By the skin from our body during the process of evaporation of sweat. So it helps to regulate the body temperature. You know that when the environment temperature is going to rise up, our body temperature is also going to rise up as well. So in order to drop down that temperature, body temperature, sweat is getting produced. So when evaporating sweat, heat energy is absorbed by sweat. From where? From our body. So thereby our body is getting cooled down as heat energy is released to the environment when evaporating sweat. So it acts as a thermal regulatory organ. Okay, heat regulation is carried out by human skin by the production of sweat. Okay. When the atmospheric temperature is lower than the body temperature, the blood supply to the surface of the skin is prevented and the body temperature is regulated. The secretion of sweat is minimized. Now, my dear children, if the reverse process is going to occur, like when the temperature of the environment is going to drop down, in that kind of situation, what happens here is production of sweat is getting minimized. And once again, here specialty is that blood supply to the surface of the skin is also prevented. Actually, it's not getting prevented, it's getting minimized. Blood supply to the surface of the skin is getting minimized. You know that our interior body temperature is somewhat greater than the outer body temperature. So, if in a colder time period, if more and more blood is getting provided to the outer layer of the skin, large amount of heat is getting released into the environment. So, by that way, there won't be any chance to save the interior body temperature. So, in order to prevent that, less amount of heat energy or less amount of blood is getting supplied into the skin during colder seasons, right? So, that's why when you feel like your hands are being dried out, right, during the cold season. Or when there is cold, when there is a when there is loss of temperature or when there is low temperature in the environment, you feel some kind of a dryness in your skin. It's because that blood supply to the skin is minimized at that time. And when the blood supply is minimized, my dear children, right, sweat production is also less. So heat is getting saved within the body, right? So this is our skin is going to act as a thermal regulatory organ. Okay, it helps to maintain the optimum temperature in our body. Then let's see what are the other functions. Third one, acting as a sensory organ. You know that our skin can capture sensors like pressure, heat and touches. So here it is given that in the dermis there are nerve endings which detect the pressure, touch and temperature. So the nerve endings contained within the dermis can absorb or can sense these kinds of or can detect these kinds of sensors, right? Pressure, heat and touches. Then synthesis of vitamin D, a most important factor, right? When our skin is getting exposed to sunlight by the absorption of UV rays through the melanin pigments, our skin is going to produce vitamin D. So using the energy of sunlight, vitamin D is synthesized in the cells of the skin. So in our cells, right, by using the solar radiation or solar energy, vitamin D is getting produced. So skin helps in production of vitamin D. Then finally the excretion. We discussed about this thing under the part of excretory products. So you know that our skin is acting as a excretory organ, right? Our skin is acting as an excretory organ, because you know that our skin is going to remove or expel sweat. Sweat is a form of substance that carry different types of excretory substance, right? So here the sweat glands secrete sweat which consists of urea, uric acid and ammonium salts. Therefore skin can be considered as an excretory organ. So here different types of salts, urea, uric acids and water are getting expelled from the body as sweat. So sweat is a form of an excretory substance which is getting emitted from the skin. So skin is acting as an excretory organ as well. Okay. Right then. So there are many functions carried out by human skin. As the skin is exposed to the environment, there is a possibility for the skin to be infected by microorganisms and waste materials. So there is a higher possibility, there is a greater chance so that our skin may come into contact with microorganisms, right? You know that our skin is getting exposed to the environment daily. Then after that it's been exposed to the environment plus in a larger extent or with a greater time. So my dear children, there is a higher possibility that microorganisms may come in contact with the human skin and they might infect our skin, right? They might infect our skin. So wipe your face with a tissue paper. You will notice that your face becomes clean and there is dust in the tissue paper. Cleanliness and protection help to maintain a healthy skin. So you take a tissue paper and take a good wipe around the face. But it should be done at a time where you are going to visit some certain places. You are going to play and come home. Then after that, you have to wipe your face by using a tissue paper. So by that way, you can see that there is plenty of dirt and dust particles getting collected on the tissue paper. It's because that your face or your skin is getting exposed to the environment more and more. So dust particles and dirt is getting collected on your skin at a larger extent. So not only dust particles and dirt, but microorganisms as well. So it's important to keep our skin healthy, my dear children. We have to keep our cleanliness, right? At least we have to bathe like once a day, twice a day, right? At least we have to take out a wash. If you are not going to bathe, at least we have to take out a wash twice a day, like in the morning and in the evening before you are going to sleep. So it's very important to keep, right, healthiness or cleanliness in our body, right? So my dear children, now let's see what are the other protective measures, right, that we can follow to have a healthy skin. So you are given with here, eat nutritive diet. So it is important to have a nutritious diet. It helps to not to maintain actually a healthy skin, but also for each and every organ system in our body. A nutritive diet is really important. We have to get food with a good nutritional value. So it's given here that Vitamin A and E are essential for a healthy skin. Consuming fresh fruits and vegetables helps to supply vitamin A and E to the skin. So vitamin A and E are the ones which are very important for a healthy skin. So therefore we have to eat vegetables and fruits, right? So vegetables and fruits. So eat plenty of vegetables and fruits. You can have a good healthy skin, right? So vitamin A and E are very important for a healthy skin. Right then, drink adequate amount of fresh water daily to keep the moisture in our skin. You have to drink enough water, adequate amount of water daily. Be gentle to your skin. Be gentle means bathe daily if the person is not sick. So I told you that if you can't bathe, at least take 2 washes per day, right? But at least if the person is, if you are not sick, make sure you at least take a bath once a day, right? So that would help to keep our skin clean. Okay, right. Use a mild soap which does not wipe the oil on your skin. So it's important to keep that oil layer, that sebaceous layer, sebum layer in our skin, because it is giving out a protective measure. So therefore, my dear children, it's important to use a mild soap, a soft soap, right, when you are bathing. So it's okay to apply a soft soap on your skin, but make sure to keep that oil layer, right? It's important for our skin. After wash or bathe, gently ball the skin with a towel and do not, right? And do not rub against the skin. So we have to gently ball it, right? We have to gently ball the skin. We don't need to push here and there. We have to gentle, right? Just wipe it off. That's it. Okay, right? Just ball it. Don't push it harder. Keep it gentle. Wipe it off clean. That's it. Then the protection from sun. If you are exposed into sun for a longer time period, wear clothes that covers your skin well. Now you know that if you take grade 8, you guys, you are still just 13, then means that you are still in your playful age. So when you are going to play, right? When you are going to play in outside, it's important to wear, right, clothes that can cover your entire body. It helps to protect your skin from ultraviolet rays and from sun, right? So most of the times it would be better for the boys when you are going to play, right? Even for the girls this is also okay, right? But when you are going to play, most of the times boys are the ones who are going to play here and there, play in the environment, no? So when you are going to play, make sure to cover your body if you are playing in the sunlight. Okay, right then. Avoid smoking and smokers. Smoking narrows the blood vessels in the skin, reducing blood circulation. The skin cells are starved of oxygen and nutrients. Therefore, the skin loses its strength and the elasticity, develops wrinkles and looks older. So I told you this thing earlier when I was discussing about that liquor and consumption of cigarettes and smoking thing. I told you that when you are going to expose for these smoking, for the smoke, right, your skin is going to be wrinkled and you might get an older look, right? So it's important to quit a smoke and avoid the smokers as well, right? In order to have a good and a healthy skin. Then the next one is given some other facts that we can follow to minimize the or to have a healthy skin. First given, wearing cotton dresses. So wearing cotton dresses helps us to reduce the perspiration, means reduce the sweat production. When more and more sweat is getting produced on your skin, more and more microorganisms are going to come, especially bacteria. Actually, sweat which is getting produced from your skin, it doesn't have a smell at all. It doesn't have a smell. Then how come you get a bad smell when you sweat? It's because of the bacteria living outside the environment. Bacteria which is living outside the environment is going to thrive on those sweat as it has lots of moisture. You know that moisture is a good factor for the growth of microorganisms. So microorganisms like bacteria are going to thrive on the sweat and they are going to spread very faster. So due to that, right, a bad smell is coming out if you are going to sweat. So if you take sweat doesn't have a smell at all when it is coming out from our skin. But however, when bacteria or any other microorganism is going to act on the sweat, they are going to thrive on the sweat and they are going to produce a bad odor, right? So this bad odor is not coming from the sweat, but it is coming from the bacteria and the structures and the substances especially given out by those microorganisms. So my dear children, in order to avoid excess sweating, we have to apply clothes or we have to dress clothes that are comfortable to our skin. So cotton is a type of a cloth that we can use, right, in our dressing processes. Cotton clothes are somewhat expensive, but however, it is very comfortable to our skin because it can absorb more sweat, and it's wearing these kinds of cotton dresses are very comfortable to our skin, right? So under the other facts, it's important to, at least when you are going outside, it's important to wear a cotton dress. Okay, right. Then next one, do not exchange your dresses with others. It's important to wear dresses and clothes by your own. Don't exchange it. Because when you are exchanging, right, there might be a chance that you might get bacteria or different kinds of viruses with the clothes, right? With the clothes, you might get different types of microorganisms. And when you are going to wear them once again, you might get different types of diseases, skin diseases especially, right? So therefore, there is a risk in having diseases if you exchange clothes with somebody else. Then next one, get medical advices for skin disorders such as pimples and warts. If there are warts and pimples, it's okay to get medical attention and to apply a certain type of a cream or any other thing to get some remedy for and to get a remedy for these kinds of diseases. Manage your stress and always try to maintain good mental health. So it's important to have a stress-free life and good mentality. It helps for not for the skin but for the each and every organ within your body. Okay. So these are the protective measures that we can follow, my dear children, in order to have a good and a healthy skin. Right then. So you are given with a figure under the extra knowledge question. See, dirty skin is easily infected by microorganisms. Also, lack of nutrients led for skin disorders. Following figure shows some skin disorders. So, lack of nutrients plus, okay, plus due to microorganisms also skin disorders may occur, right? So, these are some skin disorders. So, here you can observe pityriasis, white color patches which is coming from the skin, pityriasis, right? Then after that, the removal of skin, skin. Then warts, acne, heel is getting dry heels, then eczema. So these are some disease conditions, disorders that occur in our body, especially in the skin, right, due to microorganisms and due to other factors, especially due to microorganisms, right? Actually, skin diseases are mainly caused due to fungi, right then. Right, my dear children, then finally you are given with an assignment. Prepare a booklet on the topic importance of taking protective measures for the excretory system, nervous system and skin in day-to-day life. So you have to prepare a book, right? So this book should reflect about these topics. What topics? About the excretory system, about the nervous system and about the skin. And we should have to provide some examples, the importance of taking protective measures. We have to provide examples for the importance of taking protective measures. So it's really important to provide protective measures for excretory system, nervous system and the skin in our day-to-day life, right? It's because that I told you that kidneys, if you take the excretory system, those things are very important to us, right? So if you take the nervous system is also very important to us during the process of coordination. If you take the skin is also very important to us, right? By the skin, a good appearance is given out to the outside. So it's also really important. And we, under the functions of the skin, we discuss several other functions as well. So my dear children, it's important to have protective measures. So at home, you find out these things. What are the important measures that we need to follow to have a healthy nervous system, to have a healthy skin and to have a healthy nervous system, right? Healthy nervous system, urinary system and a healthy skin. So you have to write down the protective measures that we can follow and their importance of following. Why do we need to follow up these things? What is the importance? Like that way, I hope that you carry out this assignment and I hope that you may do this thing at home. So even we have discussed several things related to the importance of following these protective measures. So my dear children, I hope that you follow up with the lesson and you do this assignment at your home. Right then. So we have come to the end of our lesson, my dear children. We discussed several things related to the excretory substances first. After that, excretory system, the urinary system. Then we came to the nervous system, finally to the skin. Right. Now let's see the summary which contained in our lesson. So we have studied several areas. So let's see the summary on the things that we have studied. So first of all, we studied about the biological processes, right? So the biological processes that takes place in the human body, we refer these things as biological reactions. So there are different types of biological reactions which are going to occur within our body. We should maintain proper functioning of the organs and the systems in order to maintain biological processes efficiently, right? So we have to maintain proper functioning of the organs and the systems in order to maintain proper biological reactions. Then after that, the harmful products that are produced during the chemical reactions within the cells. So these chemical reactions are the ones which are referred as biological reactions. So the harmful products that are produced during the chemical reactions or biological reactions within the cells of living organisms are known as excretory products. These things are known as excretory products. The process which pass excretory products from the body is known as excretion. So my dear children, the process which pass excretory products from the body is called excretion, right? The process which pass excretory products from the body is called excretion. This is called as the excretion. So after that, kidneys, lungs and skin are the main excretory organs in the human body. So main excretory organs contained in the human body are kidneys, lungs and the skin. The basic nitrogenous excretory organs are the kidneys. So nitrogenous waste like urea and uric acid mainly getting expelled, mainly getting filtered out by our kidneys. So the nitrogenous waste or excretory substances is mainly getting processed by the kidneys. Other than the kidneys, the lungs, skin too function as excretory organs. We discussed that thing also, right? The urinary system is considered as the nitrogenous excretory system of the human body. So to expel nitrogenous excretory products, excretory products mainly, right? The main method of excretion of nitrogenous excretory products is the human urinary system, right? It is the human urinary system. Mainly kidneys are going to filter, and by the use of urinary system, these excretory substances are getting expelled out from the body, mainly urea and uric acid. Eye, ear, nose, tongue and skin are the sensory organs of the human body. So eye, ear, nose, tongue and skin, these things are called as the sensory organs or receptors. The effectors of the body responds for the senses detected from the sensory organs. So effectors means muscles, like the muscles in arms, muscles in legs, muscles in our face, muscles in our body. So those are called as the effectors. So according to the information received from the external environment by the receptors, our effectors are going to work. Okay. The process of adjusting the body for the changes in the external and internal environment by interconnecting receptors and effectors is known as the coordination. So this interconnection process, right? This interconnection process, communication process, coordination process of effectors and receptors, simply organs, right, is known as, or the communication process between different organs is known as the coordination, right? Then nerves and hormones are important in coordination. So there are two methods of coordination, two methods of communication between different organs. One method is by using the nerves and the second method is by using the hormones. So these two were named as endocrine coordination, and the other one was known as nerves coordination, right? So it is given, coordination by nervous system is known as the nerves coordination. Coordination by nerves. The main two parts of the human nervous system are the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. We studied that thing. Central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system are the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves, right? The central nervous system consists of brain and the spinal cord, right? All the nerves in the body outside the brain and spinal cord are known as peripheral nervous system, right? Central nervous system controls the higher brain functions such as muscle movements, carrying impulses, etc. So central nervous system is the one which is going to act, right, to carry out the higher brain activities such as muscle movements. Then skin is the largest organ in the human body. It consists of two layers called the dermis and the epidermis. Okay, epidermis and the dermis. It is important to lead a healthy life in order to maintain the proper functioning of the body organs. So it's really important to have a good, right? It's really important to have a good lifestyle. It's really important to have a good and a healthy organ system. It helps to keep our body clean. It helps to keep our body healthy. So my dear children, it's really important to follow up the measurements or to follow up with the tips that should keep a proper or healthy organ system, right? So these are the things that we learned under the lesson human organ systems, right? So my dear children, we came to the end of our lesson. We discussed several things related to the organ systems, about the excretory substances, about the biological processes, and what are the excretory substances which is getting produced during these biological processes. We started all the things from the respiration process. Then after that, simply we discussed about almost all the chemical reactions which is going to occur within our body. Then after that, we discussed about the nervous system, nervous coordination, endocrine coordination. How does a person is going to react for the impulses, for the stimuli which is getting received from the environment, and how does the impulses or the signals being transmitted from the nerves and to have a good connection between the organs, right? We discussed about the cricket player, right? And we discussed how a cricket player is going to play a stroke under the influence of the nerves or the central nervous system. And we divided the central nervous system into several parts. We divided the peripheral nervous system into different parts. Like that way, we discussed several things related to the lesson, right? Then finally, we discussed about the human skin, right? We discussed about the functions of human skin. We identified the main components contained within the human skin and so on. So my dear children, I hope that you took a sound knowledge about the 9th lesson related to the human organ systems. So in the next chapter, we'll discuss the questions related with our lesson. So until then, it's time to say goodbye.